The widowed millionaire swore never to love again, until he saw a waitress caring for his daughter like a mother. The cold breeze from the San Francisco Bay slipped through the tall glass windows of Azure Bay, where warm golden light reflected off the dark wooden floors. Alexander Cruz stood at the doorway, his tall frame casting a long shadow as his gaze froze on a scene that made his heart skip a beat. In the corner, Maya Torres, a line cook with her hair neatly tied back and a flour-dusted apron, was crouched beside a table, gently lifting spoonfuls of creamy butternut squash soup to the lips of Emma, his 4-year-old daughter. What stunned Alexander wasn't the soup, but Emma's radiant eyes, the little mouth opening happily, and the giggles that followed each bite. For weeks, Emma had refused every meal prepared by any nanny, yet now she was eating as if Maya had always been a part of her life. "Daddy, it's so good," Emma chirped when she noticed Alexander watching. Maya smiled, deftly wiping the soup from the child's mouth, a gesture so tender it felt as if the entire room fell silent for a moment. Behind him, the hesitant voice of Clarissa, the current nanny, pulled Alexander back. "Mr. Cruz, I'm sorry, but I think I have to resign taking care of Emma. It's too hard for me." Without turning, Alexander's voice was low but firm. "Your final payment will be ready tomorrow." His eyes stayed fixed on the sight before him, Maya and Emma chatting away like old friends, each spoonful disappearing quickly. A man's voice spoke at his side. "Who is she?" Alexander asked without looking away as Samuel Ortiz, the restaurant manager, approached. "Maya Torres. I hired her a month ago. She's a line cook, salads and soups. Is there a problem?" On the contrary, Alexander gave a small smile. "No, she just solved one." Samuel frowned. "But she's on shift. She should be in the kitchen, not babysitting. I'll talk to her right away." "No need," Alexander cut in. "I'll handle it myself." As Alexander walked toward the table, the memories of the past 2 years hit like a cold wave. Since his wife Elena had passed, Emma's laughter had become rare, and he had buried himself in expanding cruise hospitality resorts along the West Coast to escape the pain. Returning to San Francisco last month, to his penthouse overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge, was meant to be a new beginning. But until this moment, he'd only felt powerless to connect with his own daughter. "How did you get her to eat?" Alexander asked when he reached Maya. Maya startled slightly, realizing the tall man before her was the owner of the resort. "Mr. Cruz, I'm sorry if I overstepped." "I asked how," Alexander pressed, his tone both curious and serious. "We've been trying for weeks." Maya smiled, running a hand through Emma's hair. "I told her about warrior princesses from fairy tales, that they need to eat to have strength for their adventures. Right, Emma?" "Yes, like Moana," Emma replied eagerly. Alexander looked at his daughter, seeing in her eyes the spark he thought was long gone. Maya stood, clearly uneasy under his steady gaze. "I should get back to the kitchen, sir." "All right," Alexander nodded. Before he could add more, Samuel returned with a stern expression. "Maya, I need to speak with you immediately." Maya nodded, following Samuel toward the kitchen. Emma pouted at once. "Daddy, I want Maya to feed me, not you." The child's innocent words echoed in Alexander's mind, a reminder he couldn't ignore. That afternoon, as the sunset painted the San Francisco Bay in gold, Alexander sat alone in his 30th floor office at Cruz Hospitality Tower. In front of him were stacks of contracts awaiting his signature, but his mind refused to leave the image of Maya bending down to wipe the corner of Emma's mouth. A soft knock at the door. Samuel stepped in, placing the weekly reports on the desk. "Oh, about Maya. I reminded her not to leave her station during her shift." Alexander looked up, his gaze calm but layered. "How did she react?" She just apologized, but I don't think she'll do it again. Still, you know the restaurant's rules." "Rules can be flexible when they solve a bigger problem," Alexander cut in firmly. Samuel hesitated. "What are you planning to do?" Alexander didn't answer right away. Instead, he picked up the phone and dialed an internal number. "Send Maya Torres to my office, now." 10 minutes later, Maya walked in, still in her kitchen uniform, her cheeks flushed from the heat of the stoves. "You wanted to see me?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Alexander leaned against the desk, arms folded. "You got my daughter to eat and smile again, something 3 professional nannies couldn't manage in months. How you did it isn't important right now. What matters is, I need you to keep doing it." Maya took a small step back. "You want me to look after Emma?" "Yes, full time. I'll pay you double your current salary." Maya gave a small, incredulous laugh. "Mr. Cruz, I'm a cook. I don't have any childcare degrees or certifications." "You have something more important," Alexander said, tilting his head toward the window where the sunset reflected off the Golden Gate Bridge. "My daughter trusts you." The words made Maya fall silent for a few seconds. She thought of her 3 younger brothers in their small Oakland apartment and her mother, Helen, lying in bed, fighting severe heart disease. The upcoming surgery was her only hope, but the cost the doctors had quoted was impossible with her current pay. "How long?" Maya asked quietly. "Temporary, until I find a long-term solution, or longer if you want." Maya looked down at her hands, feeling as if she stood at a crossroads. "I need to be clear. This is only temporary." Alexander nodded. Temporary. As Maya left the office, Alexander remained seated, feeling as though he had just signed a contract more important than any business deal he'd ever made. He didn't know why, but a quiet voice inside told him. From this moment on, their lives would never be the same. The first week of Maya's new role unfolded like an experiment that was both unfamiliar and, surprisingly, effective. Alexander's Marina penthouse, once as quiet as an art gallery, now echoed with children's laughter and the smell of baked goods every afternoon. On the very first day, Maya showed up with a tote bag full of picture books, craft supplies, and a few packets of baking ingredients. Emma immediately clung to her like a shadow, her eyes lighting up as Maya spread everything out on the kitchen counter. "Let's make star-shaped cookies today," Maya suggested. Alexander, holding his laptop and preparing for a virtual meeting, paused. "She's never stayed in the kitchen for more than 5 minutes." "Then today will be the exception," Maya replied, already creaming butter and sugar together. Emma eagerly put on her tiny apron, and Maya turned to Alexander, handing him a dolphin print apron. "Kitchen rule? Everyone wears one, even the boss." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "I was just going to watch." "There are no watchers here, only chefs and sous chefs," Maya said, her tone firm but her eyes glinting with playful challenge. In the end, Alexander reluctantly put on the apron. Emma burst out laughing. "Daddy is my sous chef." For over an hour, Alexander, a businessman used to managing hundreds of employees, sat carefully pressing cookie cutters into dough under the strict direction of his 4-year-old daughter. Maya skillfully turned every step into a game, from Flower Rain to the Star Army, lining up to enter the oven. When the tray went into the oven, Maya took the chance to teach Emma how to clean up, while Alexander leaned against the counter, quietly watching. He realized he had never seen Emma so focused and joyful, and had never felt so lighthearted himself on a weekday afternoon. The smell of baking filled the apartment. Maya opened the oven, releasing a wave of heat carrying the sweet scent of butter. Emma squealed, slipping on oversized oven mitts to help Maya take the tray out. "Try one, Daddy." Emma handed him a still-steaming cookie. He took a bite, the heat nearly burning his tongue, but he nodded. better than anything at Daddy's restaurant. Emma beamed, and Maya tried to hide a proud smile. In the days that followed, the rhythm of their lives shifted. In the mornings, Maya took Emma to preschool. In the afternoons, they played games or cooked together. Alexander began coming home earlier, using the excuse of checking in, but really to sit at the table with his daughter, listening to stories about warrior Princess Moana or the latest heart-shaped cookie. One evening, Alexander walked into the kitchen to find Maya teaching Emma how to knead pizza dough. Flour covered her hands and her hair. Maya laughed when she saw Alexander there. "Careful, sous chef. Step in and you'll be covered in flour." Alexander removed his suit jacket, rolling up his sleeves. "I don't mind." And true to Maya's warning, 15 minutes later, his white shirt was dusted with flour, and Emma was laughing so hard she nearly fell over after attacking her dad with a small handful of dough. After Emma fell asleep, Alexander Cruz saw Maya Torres cleaning the kitchen. "You should take a break. You've done enough for today." "I'm almost done. Besides, cleaning helps me relax." Alexander picked up a dish towel and stood next to her. "You don't have to do this," he said. Maya replied with surprise, "I also find cleaning relaxing." He smiled in agreement, though he knew it was just an excuse. They worked in silence for a few minutes before Alexander spoke again. "Can I ask you something personal?" Maya nodded cautiously. "Why are you so good to Emma? It's not just professionalism. There's something more." Maya stopped washing the dishes, dried her hands, and said, "When I was Emma's age, my father left. My mother worked so much that I hardly ever saw her. I swore that no child under my care would ever feel lonely or abandoned." Their eyes met, filled with understanding. "She loves you very much," Alexander admitted. "This morning she said you're like the mother she can't remember." Maya lowered her gaze, touched. "I shouldn't get too attached. This is only temporary, as we agreed." "Things can change," Alexander blurted out, surprising even himself. In the following weeks, they settled into a new rhythm. Alexander delayed meetings to have breakfast with Emma. Maya organized weekend outings, and Alexander began joining more often. Without realizing it, they were building a life that felt like a family. For Emma's birthday, Maya prepared a small, thoughtful party. When the candles were lit, the little girl squeezed her eyes shut. "What did you wish for, Princess?" Alexander asked. "Can't say, or it won't come true," Emma replied seriously. Later, as she played with her gifts, Alexander noticed Maya looking at party photos on her phone. "Thank you for giving her a normal birthday." "All children deserve special days," Maya said with a smile. "Not just her. You've made this hotel room feel like a home," Alexander said sincerely. She nodded softly, and he couldn't describe the way she had lit up the darkest corner of his life. Emma yawned and went to Maya. "Maya, tell me a bedtime story." "Of course, Princess." Maya picked her up. "I love you, Mommy," Emma whispered as she rested her head on Maya's shoulder. Maya looked at Alexander, expecting discomfort, but saw only a gentle smile. "Time for bed, little one," she whispered, carrying Emma to her room. That night, Alexander sat for a long time on the balcony, gazing out at the city. For the first time in 2 years, memories of Elena brought not only sadness, but also gratitude for the time they had shared. And he wondered, could his heart open again? The next morning, at the family ranch on the outskirts of San Francisco, Alexander Cruz stood on the porch, watching Maya Torres and Emma planting flowers in the garden, their laughter drifting through the air like a long-forgotten melody. "You look different," remarked Daniel Vega, who had come to discuss the hotel expansion. "Maybe I'm happy," Alexander smiled, his eyes never leaving the garden. "And does that have something to do with the waitress turned nanny?" Daniel said with a hint of disdain. Her name is Maya, and yes, she and Emma remind me there's more to life than work. Alexander, after Carmen, you swore you'd never get involved again. Do you really think a waitress without formal education can understand your world? Don't speak about what you don't know, Alexander said sharply. Maya is more intelligent and warm-hearted than many people with degrees. Daniel raised his hands. I'm just worried you might be making a mistake because you're lonely. Before Alexander could respond, Emma came running. Daddy, come see the seeds I planted. Grateful for the interruption, Alexander said, Sorry, Daniel, duty calls. He took his daughter's hand and walked away, not noticing the calculating look Daniel sent toward Maya, who remained in the garden, blissfully unaware. That afternoon, after lunch, Emma fell asleep, watching a movie. Alexander found Maya in the kitchen, making lemonade. Do you always cook when you're worried? He asked. She jumped slightly. Is it that obvious? After 2 months, I'm starting to understand you, Alexander said, stepping closer. What's wrong? My mother called this morning. The doctor wants to run more tests because the treatment isn't working as well as they hoped. Alexander placed a hand on her shoulder. If you need time off or a second opinion... It's not just that, Maya interrupted, her eyes glistening. Sometimes I feel like I'm living on borrowed time. Here with you two, I have everything, safety, joy, a family. But it's not my real life. What if it could be real? Alexander asked, instinctively moving closer. They looked at each other, but before either could say more, Maya's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her face paling. It's the hospital. After listening, she trembled. My mother's had a stroke and needs emergency surgery, but the basic insurance doesn't cover it. Alexander took her hand. Tell me how much you need, and we'll handle it. She pulled her hand away. I can't take your money. You've already done too much. It's not charity, it's help, just as you've helped me and Emma. That's exactly why I can't. I need to keep clear boundaries. That night, after Emma was asleep, Alexander saw Maya sitting on the porch, gazing at the stars. Tell me about your hometown, he said. A small seaside village, houses painted in bright colors. My mother sold fish at the market until she got sick. I have 3 younger brothers caring for her now. They should be in school, not carrying adult responsibilities. Like you once did, Alexander noted. Not quite. I chose to stay. After my father left, someone had to be strong. My mother worked herself to exhaustion. The boys were little. There was no other choice. Alexander looked at her, admiring the strength hidden beneath her delicate appearance. You've never allowed yourself to be weak, to lean on anyone? Maya chuckled. A millionaire asking about weakness? You don't exactly let your guard down either. Maybe we're both afraid of the same thing. What's that? Needing someone so much that losing them would destroy us all over again. They sat in silence for a moment, drawn closer as if by gravity. Just as their lips were about to meet, Maya's phone buzzed again. It's my brother Theo. I have to go back to San Francisco tomorrow morning to sign the hospital papers. We'll go together, Alexander said. Back at Alexander's penthouse in the Marina district, he noticed Maya seemed more distant, as if she had rebuilt her protective walls. Whenever he brought up what had happened at the ranch, she deftly changed the subject. 2 weeks later, Cruise Hospitality held its annual gala at the Grand Ballroom of the Golden Gate Grand Hotel in downtown San Francisco. It was the event the business and media circles looked forward to, where Alexander often secured his biggest deals of the year. That evening, Maya stood before the mirror in the penthouse, hands trembling slightly as she adjusted a simple black dress borrowed from the front desk manager. She wasn't used to lavish parties, and the thought of stepping into a room full of strangers knotted her stomach. You look beautiful, Alexander's voice came from behind, deep and sincere. He wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo, the black bow tie crisp against a white shirt. "Thank you," Maya murmured, still unsure why Alexander had insisted she come. "Tonight I want everyone to know the person who brought laughter back to Emma." "And to me," he said, his eyes fixed on hers. At the gala, crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over evening gowns and champagne glasses. Alexander kept Maya close, introducing her to partners as a special friend, under curious stares. At first she only nodded and smiled politely, but soon she found herself speaking with ease, even drawing a few laughs, until Daniel appeared. "Alexander, the Nakamuras would like to meet you. They're discussing the Tokyo expansion," he said with polished courtesy. Alexander turned to Maya. "I'll be right back." As soon as he left, Daniel took a sip of champagne and leaned down. "Enjoy tonight. It might be the last time you stand here." Maya gripped her glass, fighting to stay calm. "What do you want?" Daniel's smile was thin. "Just a reminder that Alexander has started asking questions. I showed him some interesting numbers about your mother's medical expenses." Before Maya could respond, Alexander returned. "Can we talk privately?" His voice had lost its softness. In the office behind the ballroom, Alexander set a stack of papers on the desk. "Daniel just gave me this. Proof of an $80,000 transfer to your account. Today." Maya felt the room tilt. "I can explain." "Explain what? That while you were laughing with me and Emma, you were arranging this with Daniel behind my back?" His voice was icy. "It wasn't about the money," Maya burst out, desperate. "It's a loan for my mother's surgery. She could die without it." "I offered to help you many times," Alexander cut in, hurt in his voice. Why hide it and go to him? Maya swallowed hard, knowing this moment would change everything. Because he set a condition, one you would never set. Alexander narrowed his eyes. "What condition?" "That after tonight's gala, I must leave both of you, never see you again." Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Alexander looked at her as if she were a stranger. "And you agreed?" "My mother is dying. I had no other choice." "You always had a choice to trust me or not, and you didn't." Maya felt her heart clench painfully. "What I feel for Emma and for you is real." "I don't know what's real anymore," Alexander said, turning toward the door. "Pack your things. I want you gone in the morning." When the door shut, Maya sank into the chair. The music and laughter from the ballroom sounded distant, like a different world. At dawn, she wrote Emma a letter filled with drawings, explaining she had to go care for her sick mother and that she would always keep the warrior princess in her heart. Before the sun rose, Maya left the penthouse with a small suitcase and a heavy heart. Autumn settled over San Francisco, the trees along Lombard Street turning gold, but in the Marina penthouse, the air remained as heavy as the day Maya left. In the past 3 months, Alexander had hired 4 different nannies. One quit after a week because Emma wouldn't say a word. Another was dismissed immediately after being flatly rejected by the child. Emma often sat for hours by the window, clutching the doll Maya had given her for her birthday, her gaze distant. One morning, as Alexander reviewed contracts at the dining table, the new nanny, Jenna, approached hesitantly. "Mr. Cruz, I think we need to talk. Emma hasn't eaten anything but cookies and milk for 3 days. She hardly speaks, except to ask when Maya is coming back." Alexander set down his pen, fatigue etched on his face. "I'll talk to her." When he entered Emma's room, he found her sitting on the rug, arranging the pieces of a star-shaped puzzle, the same kind she used to play with Maya. "Princess, aren't you hungry?" he asked softly. Emma shook her head, still not looking up. After a moment, she whispered, "Why does everyone leave me, Daddy? Mommy. And now Maya." The question cut into Alexander like a blade. He pulled his daughter close, unable to find a satisfying answer. The next day, Alexander had an appointment at the annual charity event at St. Mary's Hospital, where Cruz Hospitality had funded a new treatment wing. Normally, he would have sent Daniel in his place, but this time he needed to get out of the penthouse, if only for a few hours. Walking the hallways with the hospital director, Alexander heard a familiar laugh coming from an open patient room. He stopped. On the bed sat a woman in her early 50s, hair streaked with gray, her smile radiant, Helen Torres. "I'm so grateful to the doctor and Mr. Cruz. My daughter told me it was him who advanced her an entire year's salary to save my life." Alexander walked into the room. "Hello, ma'am. I'm Alexander Cruz." Mrs. Helen Torres smiled warmly. "It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Cruz. My daughter Maya has told me so much about you and little Emma. Thank you for the loan that saved my life." Alexander froze, his breath caught in his throat, the world narrowing to the sound of Helen's voice. "Loan? I don't understand." "The money for my surgery," Helen explained casually. "Maya said you advanced her an entire year's salary to pay the hospital fees. We will be forever grateful." Her words struck deeper than any blow. In an instant, every cold glance, every unanswered question, every lonely evening without Maya came flooding back, and none of it made sense anymore. Her words struck him like a bolt of lightning. Alexander realized that Maya had even lied to her own mother just to preserve her pride. "Do you know where your daughter is now?" he asked urgently. "She went back to our hometown for a while, and now she's in Bogota, working at a small family-owned restaurant. I'll send you the address." That afternoon, Alexander returned to the penthouse, each step heavy with a mix of shame and urgency. Helen's grateful smile haunted him, her words replaying like a relentless echo. For the first time in months, the fog of anger lifted, and the truth was unbearable. Maya had never used him. She had chosen to endure his misunderstanding, to keep her promise to Daniel, and save her mother. He called his assistant immediately. "Book 2 tickets to Bogota as soon as possible. One for me, one for Emma." "For how long, sir?" Alexander looked out at the San Francisco Bay under the setting sun. "I don't know. Could be a day, or forever." The flight took nearly 8 hours, but to Alexander, every minute felt endless. When Emma learned they were going to find Maya, she became unusually excited, asking over and over, "Daddy, will Maya be happy? Does she miss me?" When the taxi stopped on a narrow street in the Usaquén district, Alexander saw a cozy restaurant called La Cocina de Alma. Bougainvillea baskets hung outside, with wooden tables lining the sidewalk. From inside came the sound of laughter and Maya's voice. He stepped in. At the far end, Maya, wearing a colorful apron and her hair tied high, was guiding about 10 children in kneading dough. Her voice was steady and patient, her hands shaping each lump of dough with care. "Maya!" Emma shouted, leaping from her father's arms and running straight to Maya. Maya looked up, freezing when she saw Emma, then locking eyes with Alexander. For a moment, all the sounds seemed to fade. Emma threw her arms around her. "I missed you so much." Maya bent down, holding her tight. "I missed you too, Princess." As Emma eagerly shared stories from the past 3 months, Alexander stood silently, unsure where to start. Maya turned to a colleague, asking her to watch the children, then led Alexander and Emma into a small room at the back. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice strangely calm, though her eyes betrayed caution. "To hear the truth? From you?" Maya was silent for a long moment, then exhaled. "I took the money from Daniel, but not because I wanted to leave. My mother needed surgery immediately. He knew and set the condition I couldn't refuse." Alexander nodded slightly. I met your mother. She believes the money came as a salary advance from me. Maya's gaze flickered. I didn't want her to know. It would break her heart, and I didn't want her to think I... Sold your own happiness? Alexander finished. Maya swallowed, not answering. He stepped forward. I was wrong not to trust you. I came here to make it right if you'll let me. Maya stayed silent, her gaze fixed on the worn wooden floor. Alexander stood in front of her, waiting for an answer he wasn't sure he was ready to hear. There's something else. Her voice was barely above a breath. Something you don't know. Alexander frowned. What is it? Maya lifted her eyes, steadier now, though her voice still trembled. I am pregnant. It's your child. For several seconds, Alexander just stood still, as if all the sounds outside had vanished. His eyes dropped to her stomach, where the faintest curve showed beneath her loose blouse. Since when? He asked quietly. About 4 months. I found out a few weeks after leaving San Francisco. The night before the gala, when we came back from the hospital. She didn't finish, but Alexander remembered. He stepped forward, placing one hand gently on her stomach, moving slowly, as if afraid to break the moment. A child, his voice caught. Ours. Maya gave a small nod. Without hesitation, Alexander reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box, revealing a simple yet elegant white gold ring. I wasn't planning to do this today, but Maya Torres, will you? She pressed a finger to his lips, shaking her head. Don't, not because of the baby. If we marry one day, I want it to be because we both truly want to, not out of obligation. Alexander closed the box, but a faint smile lingered. Always thinking of others, that's why I love you. Love, Maya echoed, almost disbelieving. Yes, I love you, for your strength, your kindness, and the way you love Emma as if she were your own. For the first time since leaving San Francisco, Maya let her emotions show, her eyes glistening. I love you too, but I need time. I've built a life here, and I can't leave it all just because... Alexander interrupted gently. I'm not asking you to give up anything. We can find a way, together. From the other room, Emma's voice rang out. Daddy? Miss Maya? The bread is ready? Maya quickly wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. Come on, before I eats it all. Alexander smiled, but inside he knew this conversation was only the beginning of a completely different future. 2 years had passed since Alexander and Maya decided to start over, and the Ocean Pearl Family Center had become the heart of the coastal community in San Francisco. Today was a special day, their son Mateo's first birthday. The center's garden was decorated with sea blue and ivory balloons, tables covered with cakes and fresh flowers. Children ran everywhere, their laughter blending with the distant sound of waves. Emma, now 7, proudly gave her friends a tour of Mom Maya's kitchen and Dad Alexander's reading room. Mateo was fully absorbed in exploring his pirate ship-shaped birthday cake, his tiny hands covered in frosting. Among the crowd, Daniel, once the thorn in their story, approached with a simple gift. He shook Alexander's hand and smiled at Maya. All the old tension seemed to have dissolved, replaced by a quiet respect. As the sun set, Alexander wrapped an arm around Maya, both watching Emma play with Mateo on the grass. I think, Alexander said softly, we've found what we were looking for. Maya leaned into him, her eyes glimmering in the sunset. Not just found, she whispered, but kept. The sound of the waves, the laughter, and the warmth of family blended together as if everything they had once lost had been returned, and more.